The morning after the fire, the restaurant stood as a charred reminder of Ethan's ruthless tactics. Smoke still clung to the air, and the scent of burnt wood mixed with the bitter taste of betrayal. Firefighters had confirmed it was arson, but proving Ethan was behind it would take more than suspicions. It would take undeniable evidence. The owner stood in front of the ruins, fists clenched at his sides. Mandy watched him, seeing the tension in his jaw, the fire in his eyes. He wasn't just angry, he was calculating. Ethan had pushed him too far, and now there was no turning back. "We rebuild," the owner said finally, his voice steady despite the devastation around him. Mandy turned to him, shocked. After everything he's done, what if he comes back? The owner's lips curled into a smirk, but there was no humor in it. Oh, he'll come back. But next time, he won't be the one in control. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "It's time. Send the footage." Mandy frowned. "Footage? What footage?" The owner glanced at her. "I told you I have friends who don't take kindly to bullies. I had security cameras installed last month. Hidden ones. The fire wasn't just reckless. It was planned. And we caught the arsonist in the act." Mandy's eyes widened. "You mean we can prove Ethan did this?" "We can do more than that," he said. "We can make sure he pays." Minutes later, his phone buzzed with a new notification. A video file. He pressed play. On the screen, two masked men poured gasoline around the back entrance. One of them pulled out a lighter, flicked it open, and tossed it onto the ground. Flames erupted instantly. Then, as they turned to flee, one of them paused to pull off his mask for just a second. It was one of Ethan's top men. Clear as day. Mandy gasped. "That's it. That's the proof we need." The owner nodded. "It's enough to bury Ethan. And I know exactly who to send it to." He forwarded the footage to Detective Hayes with a simple message. "It's time to take him down." But just as he hit send, his phone vibrated again. Another message. Another threat. "Nice try. You think you're safe? You have no idea who you're messing with. Walk away now, or it won't just be your restaurant next time." Mandy felt her blood run cold. He's not going to stop. The owner's grip tightened around his phone. "Neither am I." Hours later, Detective Hayes arrived at the restaurant, her face set in a determined expression. She held up her phone, the video playing in a loop. "This is enough to get a warrant for Ethan's arrest. But I need you to be careful. Ethan has deep connections. If he realizes we're closing in, he could get desperate." The owner crossed his arms. "He already is." Hayes nodded. "We're going after him tonight. We need you both to stay somewhere safe until we bring him in." Mandy exhaled, relief washing over her. It's finally happening. He's finally going to pay. But the owner didn't look convinced. He stared out at the city, eyes narrowed. Ethan's a snake. He's not going to go down quietly. Later that night, the tension in the air was almost unbearable. Mandy and the owner sat in a secure location, one of the owner's other properties, waiting for news. Every passing minute felt like an eternity. Then the phone rang. The owner answered, his voice sharp. "Did you get him?" A pause. Then Detective Hayes' voice came through, tense and urgent. "He's gone." Ethan disappeared before we could get to him. It's like he knew we were coming. Mandy's stomach dropped. "No." The owner's grip on the phone tightened. "He won't run. He's too arrogant for that. He's planning something." Then another buzz, a new message. But this time it wasn't a threat. It was a video, shaky footage, a darkened room. And in the center, Detective Hayes, bound to a chair, gagged. A masked figure loomed behind her. A distorted voice played through the speakers. "You thought you could stop me? You thought you won? This is just the beginning. Let's see how far you're willing to go to save her." Mandy's breath caught in her throat. "Oh my God!" The owner's jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with fury. Ethan just made his last mistake. The video played on repeat in the owner's mind. Detective Hayes, bound to a chair, a masked figure looming over her, and that chilling, distorted voice. "You thought you could stop me? You thought you won? This is just the beginning. Let's see how far you're willing to go to save her." Mandy covered her mouth, horror written all over her face. "We have to do something. We can't just sit here." The owner didn't respond right away. His mind was already racing, calculating every possible move. Ethan had crossed a line he could never come back from, and this time there would be no escape. He pulled out his phone and replayed the video, scanning for details. The lighting was dim, but he could make out something, a faint neon glow behind a masked figure. A sign, flickering just enough to reveal a single letter. K. He knew that place. It was an old warehouse district on the outskirts of town. One of Ethan's many illegal operations used to run out a club there. KRYPD. "I know where he is," the owner said, his voice deadly calm. "He's at KRYPD. Mandy's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He grabbed his car keys. "Stay here." Mandy grabbed his arm. "No way. You're not going alone. This is exactly what he wants. He's setting a trap." "I know." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "But he made one mistake. He thinks I'm coming unprepared." He sent a quick message to a private contact, a fixer he trusted. Then he turned to Mandy. "If I'm not back in an hour, call this number." He handed her a card. "They'll know what to do." Mandy hesitated, but nodded. "Be careful." With that, he was gone. The streets were empty as the owner pulled up outside KRYPD. The neon K flickered above the entrance, casting eerie shadows. The club had been shut down for months, but it was clear Ethan had repurposed it for something far more sinister. Stepping out of the car, he adjusted the gun holster under his jacket. He wasn't here to play games. He pushed open the rusted metal door. Stepping inside, the air was thick with the scent of old liquor and sweat. The club was dimly lit, the occasional flicker of faulty lights casting ghostly figures along the walls. He moved forward cautiously, his senses sharp. Then, a voice echoed through the empty space. "You're either brave or stupid to come here alone." "Ethan." The owner turned, eyes locking onto his enemy. Ethan stood on the upper balcony, a smug grin on his face. Beside him, Detective Hayes was still tied to the chair, her head slumped forward. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead. Rage flared in the owner's chest, but he kept his voice steady. "Let her go, Ethan. This isn't a game." Ethan laughed, slow and mocking. "Oh, but it is. And I make the rules. You want her? Come and get her." At his signal, shadows moved. Armed men stepped out from the darkness, surrounding the owner. He exhaled slowly. He had expected this. "You really think I came here alone?" he said coolly. Ethan's grin faltered for just a second. Then the lights cut out. Gunfire erupted. Chaos exploded in the room as masked figures stormed in, taking down Ethan's men with precise efficiency. The owner moved swiftly through confusion, ducking behind cover as he advanced toward the stage. Ethan fired wildly, backing toward the exit with Detective Hayes, still tied up. He grabbed her, using her as a shield. "Stay back," he shouted, "or she dies." The owner didn't stop. "You're out of options, Ethan." "Drop the gun." "You think I'm scared of you?" Ethan's hand shook, his eyes darting around, realizing his men were either down or fleeing. The owner took another step closer. "You should be." For the first time, Ethan looked truly afraid. But then his expression changed, twisted into something else. Desperation. "If I'm going down," he sneered, "I'm taking you with me." In one swift motion, he pulled out a detonator from his pocket. Mandy's words from earlier rang in the owner's ears. "It's a trap." Ethan pressed a button. A low rumble shook the ground. The owner barely had time to react before an explosion rocked the club, sending flames and debris flying. The force sent him sprawling as the ceiling above groaned, threatening to collapse. Smoke filled the air. Alarms blared. He could barely make out the figures through the chaos. He forced himself up, coughing, eyes scanning for Detective Hayes. Ethan was nowhere in sight. Then he saw her, still tied to the chair. The fire was spreading fast. He sprinted toward her, his lungs burning with smoke. His fingers fumbled with the ropes as debris rained down around them. "Hold on," he shouted. The ropes finally came loose, and she slumped into his arms. She was weak but conscious. "We have to go," he urged, lifting her up. The structure groaned dangerously above them. They ran through the smoke-filled corridors, dodging falling beams. The heat was unbearable, and visibility was nearly zero. Then, a silhouette appeared in the flames ahead. Ethan, bloodied, burned, but still standing. And in his hand, a gun. The owner froze. Hayes gasped weakly beside him. Ethan smiled, crazed and furious. "You should have killed me when you had the chance." He raised a gun. A single gunshot rang out. Then silence. A single gunshot rang out. For a moment, time stood still. The thick smoke twisted through the ruined club, flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the walls. The owner's heart pounded as he braced himself for pain. But it never came. Ethan staggered backward, his crazed grin faltering. His fingers loosened around the gun as a dark red stain spread across his shirt. His breath hitched, eyes wide in disbelief. He dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. "No," he rasped, as if refusing to accept what just happened. The owner turned to see Detective Hayes, still weak, barely able to stand. But in her trembling hand was a smoking gun. She had fired the shot. Ethan's body swayed. "This isn't over." His words were slurred, a mixture of rage and fading strength. Then he collapsed on the burning floor, motionless. Hayes exhaled shakily, the gun slipping from her grasp. "We need to get out of here." The owner nodded, wasting no time. He threw Hayes' arm over his shoulder, supporting her weight as they pushed forward to the collapsing wreckage. The heat was unbearable, the air thick with suffocating smoke. Every step felt like a battle against the inferno closing in around them. A section of the ceiling gave way behind them, sending a wall of flames roaring up, blocking the path they had just come from. "Move!" the owner shouted. They stumbled toward the emergency exit, kicking the door open just as another explosion ripped through the building. The blast sent them tumbling onto the concrete outside, coughing violently as fresh air filled their lungs. The sirens of approaching fire trucks and police cars blared in the distance. Mandy was already there, rushing toward them as they collapsed onto the pavement. "Oh, my God!" she cried, kneeling beside them. "Are you guys okay?" The owner coughed but managed to nod. "We made it." Hayes groaned, her body still weak from the ordeal. "Ethan, he's—" Before she could finish, the building let out a final, deafening crash. The roof caved in, sending a massive cloud of smoke and embers into the night sky. Whatever was left of Ethan was buried beneath the rubble. It was over, or so they thought. Hours later at the hospital, the owner sat beside Hayes' bed. She had suffered minor burns and exhaustion, but would recover. Mandy stood near the window, arms crossed tightly, still shaken from everything that had happened. "So what now?" she asked, breaking the silence. The owner leaned back in his chair, staring at his hands. "Now we rebuild." Mandy nodded, but something in her expression showed hesitation. "And Ethan?" The owner exhaled slowly. "He's gone. He has to be." Hayes shifted in her bed, her eyes opening slightly. "No," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The owner and Mandy turned to her. Hayes' fingers gripped the blanket tightly. Ethan always had a backup plan. The room fell into silence. Then a sudden, sharp knock on the door made them all jump. A nurse peeked inside. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." The owner frowned. "Who is it?" The nurse hesitated. "He wouldn't give his name, but he said you'd know who he is." Mandy and the owner exchanged wary glances. "Send him in," the owner finally said. The nurse nodded and stepped back. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Then a figure stepped inside. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a dark suit. His face was mostly hidden beneath the shadow of his hat, but there was something unmistakably familiar about him, something chilling. He slowly removed his hat, revealing a scar along his jawline. The owner's blood ran cold. It was Ethan's brother. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it, only quiet, calculated menace. "You thought this was over?" he asked, his voice smooth, dangerous. "My brother may be gone, but his legacy isn't." Mandy took a step back, her breath hitching. Oh, no! Hayes, still weak, could only whisper, "Not him." The owner clenched his fists, already sensing what was coming next. Ethan's brother tilted his head, smirking. "Now it's my turn." Ethan's brother stood in the doorway, his cold, calculating stare sending chills down the owner's spine. The room was silent, except for the steady beep of Hayes' heart monitor. Mandy instinctively moved closer to the owner, her breath hitching in fear. The owner remained seated, his body tense but composed. "You have some nerve showing up here." Ethan's brother smirked and took a slow step forward, adjusting the cuffs of his tailored suit. "Well, I couldn't let my dear brother's death go unanswered, could I?" Hayes, despite her injuries, tried to sit up. "Your brother was a psychopath. He got what was coming to him." His smirk never wavered. Psychopath or not, family is family. And I don't take kindly to people who cross mine. Mandy's voice trembled. "What do you want?" Ethan's brother exhaled dramatically and glanced around the hospital room as if inspecting it. "Oh, it's quite simple. I want what my brother wanted. Control, power, and to make sure you all suffer for what you did to him." The owner's eyes darkened. "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into." Ethan's brother chuckled. "Oh, but I do. I've been preparing for this moment ever since Ethan started his little war with you. He may have been reckless, but me? I'm different, smarter, more patient." He reached into his jacket pocket, and Hayes instinctively reached for a gun. He simply pulled out a folded piece of paper and tossed it onto the hospital bed. "What's this?" the owner asked cautiously. "A legal notice," he said, his voice dripping with amusement. "That club? That empire you built? Consider it under new management. Mine." Mandy's face twisted in confusion. "That's impossible." "Not quite," Ethan's brother said, taking another slow step forward. "You see, Ethan wasn't as careless as you thought. He had contingencies, secret partnerships. And now, every single one of his investments, including what he had in your business, belongs to me. That means I have leverage. And soon I'll have everything." The owner's grip tightened on the armrest. "You think I'll let that happen?" Ethan's brother tilted his head. "You don't have a choice. You're already on borrowed time." Hayes gritted her teeth. "We'll fight this. You can't just steal someone's business." He chuckled. "Oh, detective, you're so naive. This isn't just about business. This is about making sure you all suffer, just like Ethan did. You took something from me. Now, I'm going to take everything from you, piece by piece." The room fell into heavy silence. Ethan's brother finally turned to leave but paused at the door. "Enjoy your time recovering. It won't last. The storm is coming." Then he walked out, leaving behind a chilling sense of dread. Mandy was pacing. This can't be happening. There has to be a way to stop him. The owner was deep in thought. If Ethan really had his hands in my business, we need to find out how. We need evidence to counter whatever he's trying to pull. Hayes nodded weakly. "I'll pull some strings, see what I can find. But we're dealing with someone who's even more dangerous than Ethan. He's calculating. And if he's anything like his brother, he won't stop until we're destroyed." Mandy looked at the owner. "What do we do?" The owner's jaw clenched. "We hit back. Hard. We expose him before he can get the upper hand." Mandy hesitated. "And if we can't?" He exhaled. "Then we prepare for war." Just then, Hayes' phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. "What is it?" the owner asked. Hayes swallowed hard. "There's been a break-in at your office. Files have been stolen." Mandy gasped. "It's him. He's already making his move." The owner's fist clenched as he rose to his feet. "Then it's time we made ours." The owner's heart pounded as he stepped into his office. Papers were scattered across the floor, drawers left wide open, and his computer screen flickered ominously. The break-in wasn't just a random act. It was a message. Ethan's brother was playing a dangerous game, and he was making his next move. Mandy and Hayes stood behind him, scanning the destruction. "They took the financial records," Hayes murmured, picking up an empty file folder. "Whatever Ethan's brother is planning, he's already a step ahead." Mandy crossed her arms. "So what now?" "He's trying to take the restaurant. He's trying to take everything. The owner exhaled sharply and turned to them. Then we take the fight to him. No more waiting. No more playing defense. If he thinks he can steal my business, he's in for a rude awakening. The next morning, the restaurant was filled with reporters. The media had caught wind of the attempted takeover, and the owner knew it was time to go public. With Mandy and Hayes by his side, he stood at the entrance of the restaurant, ready to face the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice firm, "I built this restaurant from the ground up. I have provided jobs, served this community, and created a space where everyone, regardless of their background, is welcome." He glanced at Mandy, who looked down, her face filled with regret. "But there are those who believe they can take what I built. Those who think they can use intimidation, corruption, and greed to steal what doesn't belong to them. Well, I have a message for them." He turned toward the cameras. "You can threaten me. You can break into my office. You can try to manipulate the law. But you will never take this restaurant from me. This place stands as a testament to resilience, hard work, and justice. And I will fight for it until my last breath." The reporters erupted with questions, but before he could answer, a sleek black car pulled up. The crowd turned as Ethan's brother stepped out, a smug grin on his face. "Quite the speech," he said, walking up to the owner. "But speeches won't save you. I have the documents. I have the leverage. And soon I'll have this restaurant." The owner smirked. "You underestimated me. And that was your first mistake." Ethan's brother raised an eyebrow. "Oh." Just then, a team of lawyers emerged from the building, led by a high-profile attorney. The owner handed a folder to the press. "This is proof that Ethan manipulated financial records to create false partnerships. His brother thinks he can steal this restaurant, but the law says otherwise. Every attempt he's made to claim ownership is built on lies. And now everyone will see it." The reporters began scanning through the documents, murmuring in shock. Ethan's brother's face darkened. "You think this changes anything?" The owner stepped forward. "Oh, it changes everything. I built this restaurant. I run this restaurant. And no matter what tricks you try to pull, you will never own this restaurant." Ethan's brother clenched his fists. "This isn't over." The owner smirked. "Oh, it is? Now get off my property." With the world watching, Ethan's brother had no choice but to retreat. The restaurant erupted into applause as the owner turned to face the crowd, victorious. Mandy, standing beside him, wiped a tear from her eye. "I almost lost this place. But you fought for it. You fought for all of us." The owner nodded, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Because this restaurant isn't just mine. It belongs to the people who believe in it, the people who stand for what's right." Mandy smiled. "I misjudged you when I first met you. I refused to serve you. And now you own the restaurant." The owner chuckled. "Funny how life works, isn't it?" The camera zoomed in on his victorious smile as the screen faded to black. And that's the end of this incredible journey. What a wild ride, right? If you love this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss more powerful stories just like this. What was your favorite moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.